where survival meant reading the soil, not the stars. This documentary explores the real daily life of a Roman farmer, not a senator, not a soldier, but the ordinary man whose hands fed the empire. We follow his footsteps from dawn to dusk, season to season, through labor, family, faith, and fear. We'll uncover what he grew, what he ate, what he believed, and how his life changed as Rome expanded. Backed by archaeology, ancient texts, and hard evidence, this is not a tale of myth or glory, but a grounded, immersive journey into the world of those who built Rome from the bottom up. This is the life of a Roman farmer. Chapter 1. Before the sun rises. The wind moves low through the olive trees, stirring their dusty silver leaves as the earth clings to the last breath of night. Somewhere in the dark, a tethered ox shifts its weight, the yoke creaks, and a rooster calls once from a neighbouring field. The sun is still hidden behind the eastern hills, but the Roman farmer is already awake. Inside the house, a single-room structure built from clay and timber, embers from last night's fire glow faintly in the hearth. He crouches low and adds dry olive branches, coaxing the flame to life with slow, practiced breaths. The heat begins to return, casting flickering shadows on the walls. It smells of ash, damp straw, and old wool. Behind him, his wife and children are asleep, curled beneath a blanket of goat hair and linen. A clay pot of barley porridge sits by the coals, softening in the warmth. A piece of yesterday's bread rests on a wooden board nearby. It is hard and dry, but it will be enough. He steps outside into the chill. His sandals sink slightly into the soil, damp with dew. The sky is dark blue above him, fading toward grey. Stars still hang above the trees. The land before him is modest. 5 jugera, just over 1 hectare, or about 3 acres. Enough to survive, but only if the season is kind. There is no fence, no marker beyond the memory of footpaths and stones, but he knows every corner. A patch of barley, last season's fava beans, 2 rows of grapevines near the slope, and 5 olive trees clustered at the edge. This land fed his father, and his father before him, not richly, not easily, but steadily. He moves toward the shed where the plough rests. It's a simple ard, a pointed wooden beam tipped with iron, worn smooth by years of use. It does not turn the earth, only scratches furrows open. His oxen wait nearby, broad-backed, slow-moving, their breath curling into the cold. He checks the yoke and straps, rubbing stiff joints with his sleeve. The morning air carries the scents of manure, damp earth and old smoke. In the distance, another farmer calls out to his animals. The rhythm of the countryside is beginning, not with noise, but with motion. Tools creak, wood knocks against stone, and birds begin to stir in the fig trees. He pulls his cloak tighter and gets to work. He eats quickly, standing beside the field, a crust of barley bread dipped in olive oil, sharp and peppery, pressed last autumn. The oil is stored in a clay amphora, sealed with wax, bearing a scratched mark passed down from his grandfather. His wine, watered down the night before, tastes sour and faint. A fig, bruised from yesterday's market, lies soft in his hand. He bites it slowly, savouring the last sweetness of the season. He doesn't think in terms of empire. He doesn't know the names of generals or senators. His world is measured in rows and rainfall, in broken wheels and sowing days. He worries about frost, about rust on the sickle, about whether there will be enough seed to plant after the tax collector comes. There is no safety net. If the ox limps, if the harvest fails, if the rains come late, he may not make it through the year. But today, the ground is firm, the skies are dry, and the wind carries no sign of trouble. That will have to be enough. He grips the plough and calls to the oxen. Slowly, they begin to move, cutting the first line into the waiting earth. Behind him, the sky turns golden. Another day has begun, and the land must be worked. Because this is how Rome is fed. Chapter 2. The weight of the land. Morning deepens, and the first light no longer brushes the land. Now it lays across it in full, soft gold on soil that still holds the chill of night. The dew fades slowly from the stalks, leaving behind rows of dark, ready ground. The farmer moves steadily, his steps pressing shallow prints into the earth. Not hurried, not slow, but measured, the same pace his father once walked when inspecting this same stretch of land. He doesn't think of his farm in numbers. He thinks of it in steps, It takes him 112 to cross from the stone-lined path to the farthest olive stump. He knows which row stays wetter longest, which patch loses grain to the birds, which corner always cracks dry first in the summer heat. The land may be modest, but it's known, every stretch of it, shaped by habit and memory. The soil is heavy today, holding more water than he expected. That will slow the work, but he welcomes it. Better slow planting than failed germination. He presses his heel into the furrow to test its hold, then crouches to drag a clump loose with his fingers. It crumbles well, moist inside but not clinging. It will do. The plough waits beneath a lean-to of olive posts. Its wooden shaft curves downward, darkened by use and oil. The iron point at its end is dull but serviceable. It doesn't flip the ground, only opens it in shallow trails, just wide enough to sow. He lifts the harness onto the first ox, muttering a half-voiced rhythm, not words, just a cadence the animals know. The oxen are patient. Their coats are dusty, their shoulders marked with pale scars from the yoke. He walks them into position slowly, settling the shaft of the plough against the first line. The field is silent apart from their breath, and the creak of leather straps as they lean forward, muscles tightening. The first furrow cuts clean. He works with few tools, but every one of them matters. Tied to his belt is a curved sickle, iron, worn at the edge, not yet ready for sharpening. A wooden dibber, shaped for pressing seed into soil, hangs by a leather loop. One end is stained dark from years of contact with wet earth and ash. None of it is elegant, but all of it does what it must. At the edge of the field, 2 tall clay jars stand half sunken in the ground. One holds water drawn from the stream near the orchard, the other a thick mixture of manure, ash, and chaff. He dips a small ladle into it, careful not to overpour. The smell is sharp, but the land accepts it. The barley will grow stronger here. He doesn't think in formulas, but he remembers which seasons responded best to which mixtures. His method is memory, not measurement. He works steadily, planting fava beans among the barley rows. Not for trade, for rotation. He knows the earth breathes easier when beans follow grain. He was never told why. He only knows the soil yields more the year after. That's all that matters. The lessons were passed down by calloused fingers and quiet glances, not by scroll or calculation. Midday arrives quietly. There is no bell, no signal. Just the way the wind warms, the way the shadows stand straight. His tunic clings to his chest, damp with sweat, dust rising at each step. He stops beside the oldest olive tree on his land. Its bark is twisted like rope, and one of its roots juts like a broken rib. He leans against it to drink, letting the shade cool his breath. From the ridge he hears the whistle of another farmer, guiding his animals. The smoke of a distant cooking fire curls above the trees. All around him, the fields are alive with motion he cannot see. Hoes striking soil, seed sacks shifting, buckets creaking on tired shoulders. They are all doing the same work, in their own rhythm, for their own reasons, and yet it's the same story, repeated across hills and valleys, trusting the land, fearing it, needing it to give back. He returns to his row, fingers wrapped around the wooden dibber once again. Every step forward plants a hope. Every press into the earth is a quiet gamble. He doesn't pause, he doesn't pray, he simply keeps planting. Chapter 3. The Quiet Exchange. By the time the sun stands high over the ridge, the rhythm of the farm shifts. The morning's work in the fields is done, but that doesn't mean rest. Not yet. Now begins the cycle of bartering, checking, and tending, the daily negotiations between necessity and scarcity. At the edge of his property, shaded by a rough wooden awning, the farmer has a storage lean-to where sacks of grain are kept dry on raised stone slabs. This grain isn't for sale. It's food, fodder, and seed, all guarded closely. Rats know this place well. He checks the traps, finds 2 sprung, 1 successful. The rest are reset without a word. Losses are expected, but not accepted. He lifts one of the smaller sacks, maybe 25 kilograms, a little over 55 pounds, onto his shoulder and starts the walk, not far, just down the path to a neighbouring homestead. Along the way, he passes olive stumps, some hollowed with age, others split and sprouting fresh shoots. The land never grows young, but it tries. The other farmer is already outside, turning clay pots upside down to check for spiders and leaves. He nods once. No words exchanged. That's common. In small rural exchanges, trust travels silently, and so do debts. The grain will go toward a smoked pork joint at the end of the month, perhaps longer. No coin changes hands. The deal is simple, unspoken. 1 sack of wheat for future meat. Both men know it's uneven, but the balance will right itself over time. They always do, among those who need each other more than they'd admit. Neither calls it trade. It's just life. He returns with a small bundle, salt, dried figs, and a clay flask of fish sauce. The figs are wrinkled but good. The salt is coarse and grey, scooped from the flat pans near the coast, 2 days' travel away. Someone else made that journey, and someone before him. Each item passes through hands, carts, and promises until it lands in his palm. Back at the lean-to, he arranges the goods in a shallow basket. Nothing is wasted. The flask is sealed with pitch and linen, the figs stored with a bay leaf to keep insects away. Even the twine is rewrapped for use later. Efficiency is survival. Later in the day, a peddler arrives. He's older, lean, and rides a small mule with faded saddlebags. His presence isn't frequent, maybe once a week, sometimes less, but when he comes, he brings the world with him, in pieces. From the folds of his cart emerge things the farmer rarely sees. Bronze pins, coloured glass beads, spools of thread, even a small knife with a carved handle. There are amphorae with cracked lips, a set of worn sandals, and one wide-brimmed straw hat, far too large. Most of it is too costly or too useless. But the peddler knows to ask. The farmer doesn't haggle. He simply lifts a small jar of olive paste and a narrow strip of dried pork. It's not a rich offer, but the peddler weighs it carefully. Eventually he nods, sliding a bundle of heavy thread across the mule's back. They shake hands, a Roman gesture, palms pressed, and the mule trudges onward. Such transactions are rare and humble. Roman peasants weren't market regulars. They didn't pour into the cities daily, selling carts of vegetables like romantic paintings would have you believe. They stayed close to home, traded mostly with neighbours, and dealt in trust as much as goods. Some goods come from town, of course. When the farmer needs ironwork done, sharpening his plough point or repairing a hinge, he may send a boy or walk there himself. The forge is noisy, hot, and always behind schedule. But the smith is fair. In exchange for coin or olives or labour, the job gets done. And so the wheel of exchange turns slowly, with no written ledger, only memory and repetition. As the sun lowers, the farmer checks the bundle he traded for. The thread is strong, enough to mend a tunic or tie up seed bundles. He sets it carefully in his work basket. Around him, the air cools, and the olive trees cast long shadows across the dry stones. There is no wealth in these exchanges, but there is continuity. And in a world where harvests fail and empires shift, continuity is worth more than coin. Chapter 4. Tools, Time, and Toil. Before the first olive tree sheds its shadow, the farmer is already kneeling in the corner of his tool shed. It's a small lean-to of stacked stone and wood, tucked near the field wall. Inside, there's no order, but there is familiarity. He knows where everything rests, even if it looks scattered to others. The tools aren't many, but they're everything. A curved sickle, its bronze blade worn thin at the tip, is wrapped in linen for safety. A dibber, used for poking planting holes into soft earth, sits beside a dull billhook, both made of iron, with handles blackened from use. There's also a heavy mattock, thicker than a hoe, used when the ground is dry and stubborn. It weighs about 3 kilograms, around 6.5 pounds, and leaves deep gouges when swung well. Some tools are Roman refinements of older Etruscan forms. The wooden ard plough, with its iron tip socketed into the beam, is simple but clever. It's pulled by the ox during the season, but for now it rests against the wall, oiled and covered to protect it from rust and mice. These tools aren't owned lightly. Each one took labour, trade, or years of saving. Losing one is more than an inconvenience. It's the kind of setback that ripples across seasons. He lifts a whetstone, dips it in a clay bowl, and begins sharpening the sickle, with short strokes. Always away from the hand, the sound is soft, familiar, a scraping hiss that fills the space like breathing. Outside, the sun is climbing, but he won't begin cutting yet, not until the dew lifts, wet stalks dull blades. There's no blacksmith on this farm, only a small forge pit near the shed for quick repairs. The boy, now tall enough to carry a bucket, begins pumping the bellows. The iron doesn't melt. Roman farms weren't forges, but the heat can bend a misaligned tine or reset a cracked handle if the socket is true. Every repair done here saves a trip to town. Every trip avoided means time kept on the land. The farmer teaches as he works. He points out the grain of the wood, the correct angle of the sickle's edge, the danger of cracks in bronze. These lessons aren't formal. They are passed down like recipes or prayers, through habit, rhythm, and repetition. The tools speak to him, not in words, but in weight and wear. The chipped edge of the spade, the smooth handle of the billhook, the splinter near the plough yoke. Each mark is a kind of memory. This is how time is measured on a farm, not by calendars or statues, but by the use and survival of simple things. In wealthier villas, tools might be kept in racks or labelled by slaves. Here, everything is kept with care, but nothing is ornamental. Even his sandals are tied with rope twine, replaced when frayed, not discarded. The economy of the peasant is not about growth, it's about lasting. By midday, the boy is helping strip vine stems from a thicket along the wall. The billhook makes short work of it, slicing through dry branches. The farmer demonstrates the angle. Shallow cuts, always upward, letting the branch bend and break without splitting the handle. He doesn't speak of Roman tradition. He speaks of how to avoid a broken wrist. Back in the shed, they hang the tools from nails hammered into the support beams. One for the sickle, one for the shovel, one for the basket that holds spare pins and wedges. The whetstone returns to its bowl. Even the ashes from the forge are swept into a pile. They'll be spread into the compost heap later. Nothing is wasted. He marks the doorframe with a short horizontal line. He's done it every year, right after the vine thinning. The marks aren't numbered, just carved. There are 12 now. He doesn't count them out loud, but he remembers. Roman peasants didn't live in literature. They lived in systems of hand, tool, and season. Their history wasn't told in marble, but in the wear of a blade and the smooth curve of a handle passed down from one hand to another. And in this, the farmer sees continuity. Even without wealth, even without fame, the tools endure, and so does he. Chapter 5. The Yield of the Soil. The figs ripen first. Not all at once, but in gentle, uneven waves. The farmer knows which trees to check by the shape of their shadow. Some have grown slower, shaded by the olive grove. Others lean into the sun, fruit heavy with sap and heat. He presses one gently between his fingers. Soft skin, warm to the touch. It's ready. He calls the boy. They take a woven basket, patched with twine. No grand harvest here. Just the first picking. The figs are not for market. They're dried for winter, eaten in the field, or bartered for thread or salt. One for the basket, one for the mouth. Sweetness after the heat. Harvest is not a single day. It unfolds in layers. The early barley, golden and brittle, has started to lean. The farmer runs his hand across the tops. The grains slide off easily. A few are crushed between his thumb and nail. Still slightly soft. Not quite yet. A few more days. The olives will come later. Right now it's the grain and the grapes that whisper readiness. The vines, trained low between stone ridges, are showing first signs of purple. Not enough to pick, but enough to worry. Rain would ruin them now. Just a few nights of mist would burst the skins. Back near the house, he lifts a clay jar from the wall niche. It's last year's spelt, dried and preserved with ash and tight cloth. He shakes out a handful, weighing it with his palm. Rough, fibrous grain, still good. He'll mix some with barley and grind it tonight, if the grindstone is free. Meals are smaller during the harvest window. Work fills the stomach more than bread. Tools are inspected again. The sickle's curve has been retouched. The basket seams are firm. They patch a hole with willow fibre. Even the ox yoke is checked, though the animal won't be needed until the grain's been tied. He doesn't speak much during this time. The boy learns through motion. Climbing, cutting, pressing, sorting. the rhythm of gathering before it spoils, of acting before the season shifts. A Roman farm doesn't wait. The field gives when it's ready, not before. The sickle glints in the early light, not sharp like a knife. It doesn't slice clean. It pulls and tears in short, practiced arcs, the bronze edge biting into the stalks at an angle. The farmer grips a fistful of barley stems and swings low. Each cut lands with a hiss, followed by the soft collapse of grain. The boy follows, gathering handfuls into loose bundles. He doesn't tie them. Not yet. That waits until there's enough to justify the cord. Twine isn't wasted on scattered work. They build the piles slowly, one curve of the field at a time. There's no crowd, no festival. A Roman farmer's harvest is a private thing, stripped of the ceremony seen in town villas or city temples. No altars are raised here. A quiet nod to the gods. That's all. Maybe a crust of bread left on the threshold. Maybe a word whispered under breath. The real offering is the work. By midday, their tunics are dusted with chaff. The sun is high, and the grain is brittle. Perfect. They move faster now. The farmer wipes sweat from his brow with the back of his hand, not stopping. The ox waits nearby, chewing cud, yoke slung across its back. When the bundles are stacked, the ox will pull the sled, a rough wooden platform used to drag the sheaves toward the threshing floor. The floor is nothing more than a patch of packed earth, flattened over years of use. There, the grain will be trampled under hooves, separating seed from husk. Not today, though. First, they cut. Always cut first. Behind the house, the wife spreads figs across a woven mat, turning each one gently. Ants are a constant problem. So are flies. She burns a bundle of dried rosemary to smoke the air, fanning it with her hand. The scent drifts toward the field. It doesn't help the grain, but it reminds them there is a home waiting when they finish. The boy stops to drink. He asks how long the harvest will take. The farmer shrugs. As long as it takes. There's no end date on a farm, only the next task. Tomorrow will be threshing, then winnowing, then storage, then, if the weather holds, the start of grape picking. But for now it's this, one bundle at a time, under the Roman sun. They do not speak of wealth, only of enough. Enough for porridge, enough to trade for oil, enough to plant again next year. That is the yield they seek, and today the land is giving. Chapter 6. The Hands of Winter. The threshing floor is quiet now. Where once there were heaps of stalks and the heavy rhythm of hooves, there is only dust. The farmer sits near the edge, sharpening a blade by lamplight, his son curled nearby, too tired to talk. Harvest season is finished, and with it the long days of sunlight. The granary holds enough, but not too much. Clay jars packed with grain line the stone shelf. Some are sealed with cloth and wax, others still open, their contents stirred and checked daily for weevils. It's not paranoia. A single spoiled jar could mean hunger. Now begins the quieter labour. The farmer repairs a cracked wheel from the ox sled. He drives new pegs into the handles of worn tools, setting them upright along the wall. Everything must be ready, even in stillness. A Roman farmer's winter is not rest. It is routine, silent, careful, repetitive. Inside the home, the air smells of dried rosemary, clay, and boiled must. The wife simmers lentils in a blackened pot, flavoured with celery seed and old salt pork, dried in the summer smoke. The boy helps clean olive pits from last season, feeding them to the hearth for slow-burning heat. Rain taps against the roof tiles. No snow here, not in this part of Latium, but the chill comes in anyway. Through the floor, through the seams in the wood, through the bones. The farmer checks his ledger, scratched into a wax tablet. Amounts given to neighbours, amounts still owed. He does not count in coin, but in sacks and hours. The man who borrowed a cart axle, the woman who traded mustard greens for barley. Every mark matters. Morning arrives late now. The sun struggles through the mist, and the ground stays damp until midday. The farmer doesn't wake early out of discipline. He wakes because the rooster does, and the body never forgets its rhythm. He walks the edge of the plot, inspecting the cover crop. Fava beans have been sown to restore the soil, not for sale, but for the ground itself. Their leaves are broad, dark, and already curling from the cold. He kneels, checks the roots. Good. Deep and strong. He brushes the earth back gently. The vines are bare now, their limbs tied and trained, ready for next spring. He scrapes at one with his knife, checking the bark. No rot. That's something. Winter is also when rumours spread. At the well, a neighbour speaks of new taxes. At the mill, someone mutters about conscription in the spring, but the farmer listens only with half an ear. He has no control over governors or campaigns. Only the next furrow, only the tool in his hand. The boy catches a mouse in the storeroom and is rewarded with the last dried plum. A rare treat. The father nods, saying nothing. His approval is quiet, like most things on the farm. They mend cloaks in the evening, sitting close to the fire. The wool is coarse, but it holds. Smoke curls into the rafters. Outside, the land rests, but not them. A Roman farm may sleep, but the hands that tend it never fully stop. Chapter 7. The Price of Simplicity. The road to the market isn't far, but it feels long. Ruts baked into the dirt from wagon wheels, the stony edges worn sharp by hooves. The farmer walks beside his ox, leading a two-wheeled cart with a cracked yoke, the boy perched among baskets of dried figs, cracked barley, and a sealed jug of cheap wine. Nothing is fancy, but it's enough. They walk past olive groves and scattered huts. No sprawling estates out here, no marble colonnades. Just other farmers, just other carts, all hoping their goods might trade for oil, salt, or iron nails. They speak little on the way. The rhythm of the road takes their breath. It's cold, and the ox breathes mist. The town emerges slowly. Not a city, but a market village with a muddy forum, a few tiled roofs, and a scattering of shrines. Smoke curls from a baker's chimney. A smith hammers somewhere unseen. Voices rise, bargains shouted, chickens flapping under stalls. The farmer lays out his goods on a worn blanket. He does not haggle loudly. He waits. A woman wants barley. He accepts her eggs. Another man needs wine. They trade for a loop of bronze wire. No coin changes hands, but not everything goes smoothly. A tax official passes, eyeing the goods. Not much, he says, but enough to count. The farmer frowns. He is paid already. A shrug from the official. Pay again, or appeal. But where, and to whom? By midday, the sun is warm enough to lift the fog. The market smells of animal dung, wood smoke, and baking bread. It isn't pleasant, but it's alive. More voices, more trades, more noise than the farm ever sees in a month. The boy stares wide-eyed at a stall selling coloured glass beads. He asks, just once. The farmer says nothing. They move on. The beads stay behind. Still, they leave with more than they brought. Oil, flour, 2 mended sandals, even a broken ploughshare, which the blacksmith promises to repair by next market day. They eat in the shadow of a temple, not to Jupiter or Mars, but to Ceres, the goddess of grain. The boy offers a crust of bread beside the altar. Not superstition, just habit. The farmer lets it be. On the way home, they walk slower. The cart is lighter, the road no shorter. The boy sleeps among the sacks. The farmer hums low, a sound with no tune, carried only to the ox's ears. At the gate, the wife meets them with a silent nod and a steaming pot. No one asks what was gained. It's all here, in the things unloaded, in the things repaired, in the fact that the farm can continue. That is a Roman peasant's wealth. Not gold, not fame, just enough to return, enough to plant again, and enough to hold the world at bay for one more season. Chapter 8. The seeds beneath the soil. Spring returns without fanfare. The skies soften, the wind shifts, and the earth exhales. Soaked fields crack open beneath the farmer's sandals. All around, the land heeds the call. Wildflowers sneak through stone cracks. Bees hum over groves, and buds return to olive trees once stripped bare by winter hands. But there's no time to watch it unfold. The farmer's boots press into soggy soil. He's measuring rows, rechecking seed stores, and hauling compost by the basket. His son follows with clumsy hands and silent admiration. This year, barley will dominate the centre strip, flanked by lentils and small rows of onions. Emmer wheat, ever unreliable, gets the drier rise near the eastern boundary. A cartload of manure from a neighbour's goat pen has been spread along the worst corner, where last year's roots refused to take. The farmer adjusts his seed ratios carefully. There's no guessing now. Spring may look generous, but it's a gambler's season. A wrong turn, a delayed sowing, or a surprise frost could undo months of labour. Their one ox, lean but loyal, is hitched to the plough. With calloused fingers wrapped around the worn yoke, the farmer drives forward in long, repetitive lines. The boy scatters seed behind, walking barefoot in mud so cold it burns. The air smells of churned earth, distant charcoal, and something floral he can't name. Above them, swifts slice the wind. Time folds. By midday, their tunics cling with sweat, and clay cakes their legs. They pause under a fig tree, bread from home, dipped in vinegar. The boy drinks greedily and flops onto a stone. The farmer remains standing, scanning the furrows, the clouds, the shadows crawling from the western hills. His face doesn't soften. The sowing is only beginning. That evening, after washing in the ditch and scraping mud from their ankles, they tend the tools. The wooden plough blade, cracked at one corner, will need mending. The metal share must be sharpened with stone. Slowly, evenly, sparks catching in the dusk. The son feeds scraps to the ox and carefully refills the water trough with a bucket from the cistern. The farm is quiet, but not still. Inside, the mother prepares a thick porridge from cracked barley and stale lentils. She adds garlic and a splash of oil, the last from last year's pressing. The scent is earthy, warm, with a hint of wood smoke. Her hands move with confidence, even as her shoulders slump from endless repetition. They eat in silence, broken only by a cough or the creak of wood beneath them. By nightfall, the boy lies curled under a coarse wool blanket, his feet raw, his hands stinging with new calluses. He doesn't complain. He stares at the rafters, replaying the day. The way the ox obeyed his father's voice, the sound of plough iron meeting stone, the rhythm of his own feet in wet soil. He thinks about the food he helped grow, now buried beneath the earth, waiting. Outside, the farmer leans against the doorframe. The air is heavy with moisture. A distant owl calls. He smells the rain coming. Not tonight, but soon. He knows every sign, and he prays, not to the gods, but to the rhythm of the earth itself. Let this year be enough. Chapter 9. The Turning of the Year. The dry heat has lifted. In its place comes the cool damp of early autumn, pressing down on the valley like a heavy woolen cloak. Our farmer stands near his grain storage shed, arms crossed, eyes scanning the sky. The last of the wheat has been brought in, bundled and stacked, its chaff long swept from the threshing floor. The hard work of summer is finally behind him, but new tasks now rise like mist from the fields. The grapevines along his southern terrace sag with ripening fruit, their sweetness tested each morning with a careful pinch and sniff. Beside them, his wife lifts clusters gently from the vine, laying them into woven baskets, while bees drone lazily around her. The air smells of damp earth, fermented juice, and wood smoke from distant hearths. It's a season of quiet industry, when every family works to preserve what they can before the cold returns. Inside the farmhouse, amphorae stand ready. His eldest son helps crush the grapes underfoot in a carved basin, the purple liquid trickling into clay jars. The boy laughs as his stained feet splash juice across the floor, but his father stays quiet. He remembers poor harvests, times when the wine turned sour or the olives fell too early. Autumn is generous, yes, but it's never guaranteed. Behind the house, 2 olive trees rattle in the wind, their silver leaves flickering like coins. The fruit isn't ready yet. Not quite. He'll wait, just a few more weeks, praying for dry weather. His father taught him to watch the moon, its rising, its shape, before harvest. And even now, decades later, he still listens. As the days shorten, the farmer moves slower, not out of weakness, but from purpose. Firewood must be split, stored under cover, chickens gathered closer to the house, roof tiles checked, and the cracked ones replaced. Each chore fits into a quiet rhythm, passed down through years of necessity, not invention. He doesn't write lists. He doesn't need to. His body remembers what must be done. The hands that once held a scythe now press olive pulp into a woven mat, twisting it until golden oil seeps through into a basin below. It smells sharp, grassy, bitter. The first oil of the season is never wasted. A drizzle on bread, shared with neighbours, a blessing, a warning to winter. We are not caught off guard. At night the house grows colder. His children sleep under layered wool. His wife mends torn tunics by firelight, humming a tune from her childhood. Outside, a fox prowls the vineyard, scattering chickens in the dark. He steps out with a torch, not to catch it, just to remind it, this land is watched, and it is claimed. Another year turns, quietly, without trumpet or parade, just smoke rising from rooftops, a man sealing jars of wine, a mother pressing salt into stored pork, and a boy lifting one more heavy basket to the loft, grinning, because he's strong enough now to carry it alone. The land sleeps, but the farmer does not yet. Chapter 10. The End of the Season. The days grow shorter. The air, once filled with the scent of dust and heat, now carries a cool sharpness, tinged with the aroma of fallen leaves and damp earth. Summer's fire has passed. The fields that once shimmered gold with grain now lie bare, their stubble dark and brittle beneath the wind. In the distance, the hills blush with fading colour as autumn settles over the land. Our farmer, weathered and quiet, inspects the stacked granaries. Inside the small domed structures or tall clay amphorae lined along the storehouse walls, his grain lies sealed, barley, spelt, and a few sacks of lentils. He runs his hand along the smooth, sun-warmed surface of a jar, nodding to himself. It was not a bad year, not perfect. The late rains damaged some of the early wheat, and one of the oxen strained its leg and had to be rested early. But the harvest was enough. Enough to pay the rent in kind, enough to sell a few sacks in the town market, and enough to feed his household through the winter. Tools are checked one last time. Sickle blades are cleaned and stored. The worn wooden yokes are hung above the shed door. In the orchard, the last of the figs are gathered, soft and warm from the sun, while the olive trees, older than the farmer himself, still hold their fruit tightly. Soon he will climb them, cloth bag over his shoulder, twisting the olives free by hand and dropping them into woven baskets. With the pressing of the olives and the final storing of beans, the seasonal rhythm winds down. A final round of barter at the market secures salt, oil lamps, wool cloth for mending, and a little wine, to be rationed carefully through the cold months ahead. The farmer trades with quiet confidence now. He knows the rhythms of price and weight. He's no rich landholder, but he isn't desperate either. There is dignity in this simplicity. In the evenings, he sits near the hearth. Smoke from olive branches curls upward, leaving its familiar scent in the air. His wife grinds grain slowly with the quern, and their son repairs a broken strap using a bit of leather soaked in oil. The animals are fed, the yard swept, and the last light of the sun glows red against the farmhouse walls. Outside, the sounds of the countryside soften. Fewer carts on the roads, fewer voices from the fields. The season has closed. The farmer looks out into the cooling dusk, where the shadows stretch long across the hills. This land has tested him, shaped him, held him. He has no statues in his name, no scrolls recording his deeds. But his work, quiet, hard, and unseen, feeds the cities, supports the empire, and keeps the rhythm of Rome alive. Without him, there is no army, no senate, no glory, just empty stone. And so the final light fades, not with ceremony, but with the steady quiet of another year survived.